What's up? Welcome back to another Down Under video. This series we're starting off, we're going to be, what are we doing? We're going to break down each division, break down each team, and see what their needs are in the offseason so they can have the best possible regular season next year. Today we're going to start off with the AFC North, which consists of the Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, and Browns, and today we're going to hit with the Ravens. So take it off.
Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so this series is basically just going to be like us running down, breaking through what we think each team needs to do this offseason, things we think they should do, things they could possibly do, even some outlandish potential things that they could do, moves they can make, trades, signings, free agency, draft, anything of that nature. I know the NFL Combine has been on this past week, so we feel like it's a relevant time to put this content out for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
It also gives us kind of a filler since the NFL is obviously not currently in season.
And we really don't like talking about the NBA as much as we do the NFL.
Yeah, the NFL is where it's at. Let's break down Baltimore. Last season, Baltimore didn't really have the greatest season. They didn't start off great, really, at all. Two of the three running backs were hurt, I think, within the first week of at least a month within the season. Dobbins tore his ACL. Who's the other running back? He tore his ACL as well. You know who I'm talking about? Because I drafted him in fantasy.
Edwards.
Edwards.
Gus
Edwards. Marcus Peters tore his ACL.
A lot of guys.
They had a lot of guys getting hurt all at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
This led them to finish last in the AFC North, although it's not like they had a terrible season. I mean, they finished 8-9. If they would have won 2 games, they could have been tied for first place, potentially. Or they could have swept. Yeah. They didn't finish great. So what does Baltimore need to do for next season? I think they should look into finding a new healthy running back to complement their running backs they have. They do have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins was a rookie 2 years ago. He hasn't really shown that he can be a 3-down back in the NFL, especially in Jim Harbaugh's system. They do have Lamar Jackson, who is known for being mobile and running outside the pocket, but you still need to have that third-down running back, that Kyle Juszczyk that you can hand the ball off to or look to throw to out of the backfield on those key third and short plays. For that, you're just going to need a conversion, and you might not always want your first, second down guy running through, and when there's going to be a bunch of guys piling down at the line. I think they should sign a guy like Cordell Patterson from the Atlanta Falcons. His contract is up. Atlanta has made regards of looking to extend him. I think he would be a great add for them. He is a veteran guy who's made his way around the league. He's played receiver. He's played running back. He's been a kickoff specialist. He has appearances in the Pro Bowl. He's been around the block a time or two before, if you know what I'm saying. I think he would be great to mentor the young running backs they have, Dobbins, Edwards. I'm not saying get rid of Dobbins and Edwards because they've both been hurt, so they really haven't had a ton to prove. But I think if you add a veteran guy like him or another veteran running back from this free agent class, I think that it will help them a ton as they try and climb back up to the top of the AFC North.
All right, next, let's talk about there is some, outlandish, I guess you can call it, not necessarily, but we already know that Mark Andrews was the number one target last year for Lamar Jackson.
I think it was pretty much the best tight end last year. I'd give him over Kelsey.
So they already have Mark Andrews, who played really well last season. You also have Marquise Brown, and they also drafted, I believe, Rashad Bateman. Was it last year or 2 years ago? So that's what your wide receivers are looking like right now. We had mentioned 3 names that stuck out when it comes to finding that wide receiver one, because I don't think Marquise Brown's necessarily the wide receiver one right now.
He's really not. He doesn't have the body structure of a wide receiver one, and he doesn't have the attitude of a wide receiver one.
No.
Yeah, Brown's a guy that you throw in the slot and you just expect him to run past everybody. He's not a throw the ball and expect him to make a catch one-on-one.
When I think a wide receiver one, the first person I think of is A.J. Brown. I don't even really consider Tyreek Hill a wide receiver one. He's just fast. He's fast.
Right. So the 3 names we mentioned, Chris Godwin being number 1. Now, he did have the ACL tear last season. it could be a very nice number one option for the Ravens, but, committing the money might be an issue for the Ravens just because of the ACL issue and the tear, that he went through. So that might be somewhere they could buy down another big guy, big name guy. Going to be the highest paid guy, I think, in the free agent market this year, Devontae Adams.
Ooh.
That would be – I think that really, really complements. I mean, giving Lamar a number one option like Devontae, a guy like you said, or Jake said, or whoever said it, but a guy that can go up, get the one-on-one ball, a guy you can depend on, bringing in someone like Devontae. And then, Jake, I know you mentioned Antonio Brown, too.
Well, I mean, his cousin is Marquise Brown. Obviously, AB has had numerous problems off the field and on the field. But when he is on the field, he is top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, obviously he played with Tom Brady last year, but whenever him, Godwin, and Mike Evans were all out in 3 wide receiver sets, there's a reason that Tom Brady usually favored throwing the ball to Antonio Brown.
Well, I mean, if Godwin and Mike Evans was out there, their best cornerbacks was on Godwin and Mike Evans.
I think Brown is also smart, though, because you could probably get him at a cheaper price tag. Just because of the issues that he's gone through. Like, Devontae's obviously going to command money. I think Godwin, even though he's got the ACL tear, is going to command money. But, Devontae would be huge. Now, Devontae's still pending with Rodgers' situation. If the Packers can somehow, some way pull it off.
I've heard rumors that he gone.
Yeah. So, those are the 3 guys that we had mentioned at wide receiver. Now, next, Calais Campbell has had a fantastic career. Don't get me wrong. But he is old. And he is not worth the money anymore. The Ravens just need to let him walk, retire, whatever the case may be. I don't know how old he's got to be, 30?
He's probably 36,
37 years old. Like I said, great career, but it's time for them to move on.
And that comes down to he's 35, but that comes down Baltimore's going to need to do some restructuring of their defensive line, as so are many, many teams this upcoming offseason, just because – you saw with Aaron Donald toying with retirement, the defensive line position is becoming a very key position for teams trying to get after the quarterback, especially as the game of football is developing and more quarterbacks are not just sitting in the pocket like your Tom Brady, your Drew Brees, your Peyton Manning, and they're moving out of the pocket like your Lamar Jackson, your Patrick Mahomes, your Josh Allen. Guys of that nature. You need edges that are fast enough to keep up with them. You don't need old, slow guys that can't get around the edge real quick to keep the quarterback in the pocket. Baltimore, for the longest time, has had a ferocious defense, and it's been one of the most feared defenses across the league back when they had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Now, not so much. I mean, they still have a good defense. They had a number of injuries, like we said last year. They still do have quite a nice secondary with Peters, Chuck Clark, and Marlon Humphrey. They also have Patrick Queen and Owa, the guy they drafted last year in last year's draft, but their defensive line is what's going to need some help. Derek Wolfe is continuing to get older. Brandon Williams is getting up there in age. Tyus Bowser, another guy that is getting up there. He's mid-20s, but he's faced quite a number of injuries throughout his career and his tenure with the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens need to look themselves in the mirror this offseason and really rank what they see fit for what positions they need to fill and the priority ranking behind those positions. They don't need to go out and get a quarterback. They don't need to go out and get a tight end. Their offensive line, for the most part, is pretty healthy. They really don't need a whole ton of help secondary-wise unless they're going to go try and pick up a corner early in the draft or try and sign a veteran corner that they could have just in case somebody gets hurt, like Marcus Peters got hurt last year. As we look into what they need for the draft, I'm going to skip over what we have about Lamar. We'll come back to that. But there's going to be a ton of guys there whenever – I feel like this draft class, it's not so much quarterback heavy, but I feel like there are a ton of guys that'll be picked in the second, third, fourth round, day 2, day 3 – that'll be thrown into the fire right away to make an impact and that will be looked onto upon to be difference makers for these defenses.
For sure. So starting off with that, and I know you had said that their offensive line was not in need of help, but they could be losing their center, Bradley Bozeman, to free agency this year. So this is why I listed them taking, with the 14th pick, Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa.
Who had a great combine, by the way.
Yeah. He is probably the best offensive tackle in the draft class, has continued to show it throughout the season. And I think he would complement their offense very well. This Iowa team in the Big Ten, typically most Big Ten teams like to run the football. And with the Ravens, we know they have a run-heavy offense. I think Tyler Linderbaum would come in and fit that role perfectly. So I have them taking them in the first round. We'll skip over, like I said, a 6th-round pick would be Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. That's an if. I don't think he's going to drop that far. And then Jermaine Johnson the second, or Arnold, whatever the hell his last name is, 3rd round. That's an edge. Now, going back to defense, I have them taking in the 2nd round either Fedarian Mathis from Alabama or Devontae Wyatt from Georgia. Both those guys, big SEC names, could fill the role very well. And like you said, they need defense help, especially in the front line. So either Devontae Wyatt or Fedarian Mathis. I think both those guys. I want to say Devontae had a pretty good combine, but I don't know much about Fedarian. So
there's going to be a bunch of guys. I mean, obviously Georgia won the national championship, but Georgia's going to have a ton of guys that are going to be drafted in this upcoming draft that are going to be difference makers in this league for years to come. They've got Jordan Davis, they've got Wyatt, they've got James Cook on offense, they've got a couple of receivers coming out, I believe, as well. This team is going to be this draft is going to be tons of Bulldogs all across the board. Moving on from defense, Hassan, what is your take on the Lamar Jackson contract situation?
I mean, would they say that they're not going to offer him until after this year?
They're going to wait.
Because, I mean, they have Huntley kind of developing. But, I mean, I think that's stupid. He was an MVP a few years ago.
Right.
And that's when they were at their peak. They went 14-2 that season. And the only problem, I think that's the same year Mahomes took the Chiefs to the Super Bowl and won. Yep. So, obviously, that's why they went. If Mahomes wasn't here, I firmly believe the Ravens would have won it all because they had to play the Titans in the wild card round. I remember that. But not offering Lamar Jackson and just dangling the idea of that you haven't really proven a lot to us, I think that's dangerous. And with the player like Lamar, he's a generational talent. He was compared to Mike Vick right out the gates. You don't get that a lot. Like you're not gonna find a diamond in the rough like with Mahomes, with Josh Allen. Like you got Lamar Jackson and he's a proven winner with you. Then you gotta tie him down now.
Yeah.
And make him happy. Because if your quarterback's not happy, you're not gonna win.
Yeah, I agree. And he dealt with the injuries last year, but I do want to point out he was 6-1 in the games he played last year for the Ravens.
Yeah.
If he was healthy that last year, I guarantee you the Ravens would have probably been.
He was 7-5. You're looking at 2018.
Sorry, 7-5. So again, still a winning record.
Injuries, like he can only do so much. But when your secondary is literally your practice squad,
right?
What are you going to do?
And I know his touchdown interception ratio wasn't very good last year. Yardage was almost 3,000 still in 12 games, 64% completion, which is actually better than his career average. Yeah. But the Chiefs have obviously found their quarterback for the future. The Bills have found their quarterback for the future. The Bengals have found their quarterback for the future.
He's not top 10.
Nope.
The Ravens, like you said, dangling that and saying, "Oh, we don't want to re-sign you," or we're still tentative about you. Lamar's got to be like, "Well, what the hell do I have to prove? I've won an MVP. I've been 14-2 in a season. I obviously know that division's going to be – I think that division's going to be solid. I think the Bengals will still be pretty good next year.
That's always been a tough division.
Right.
Like, the Browns have always been that terrible team, but the other three teams are as long as I can remember, I've always remember the Bengals being pretty solid. When we played them Mahomes' first year.
With Andy Dalton.
Yeah, Mahomes' first year, when he played Andy Dalton, they were positive. They were something in 4 at that point.
Right.
So I would say 9-4.
It's just dangerous. Yeah. And for them to be because there's going to be – I still believe that there's going to be, even after next year, there's going to be teams that are going to need a QB because this draft class is not going to fill the spots. There might be – I think there's one name out there.
Malik Willis.
I was going to say, I think there's one name, and I think Pickett's probably a backup at best.
He's a Kyle Trask.
And Matt Corral, I'm not very high on. I never really have been.
I was high on him, but he didn't really perform ending it well.
Well, I mean, like everyone's so high on these college quarterbacks, but in reality, it's like when it hits the NFL, a lot of them don't translate. So it's hard
yeah, of course. I mean, you see that a lot.
Find them. But anyway, yeah, the dangling that. So if they don't re-sign him, I think it'd be very, very stupid. And the fact that they're not doing anything with his contract right now is stupid.
It's just the fact of them making a statement saying, you really haven't proved enough to us right now for us to give you that Josh Allen money.
Yeah.
Like you just have, and the fact, like I have more MVPs than Josh Allen.
Right.
I've won the same amount as Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously that Mahomes money is something else. He is a generational talent. We've been to 4 straight AFC championships, 3 straight. Not 3. No, ignore that last one. You get the point. Like he got offered that money because he won right out the gate.
Right.
Lamar Jackson also is winning, but not in the sense of Super Bowls. And you just can't not offer him, and you got to make him happy if you want to win.
Speaking of Josh Allen, quick, if you're comparing the two, Lamar's had a better record than Josh Allen in the same amount of time.
Well, coming out, everybody thought Josh Allen was trash.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Right now, I'd rather have Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say so as well. But I also believe that Lamar...
Josh Allen took a big leap.
Yeah, Lamar deserves the money.
Lamar is bound to take a leap.
Yeah. And especially if they can pick up that number 1 this year.
Yeah, they need a receiver.
That main target, I could see him, especially with Andrews playing as well. I don't think Andrews will have that. I mean, he'll have a good season, but he won't have a season like he did last season.
Yeah, because he was the target. Marquise Brown has no hands.
Yeah, and Marquise is a
toothpick. You throw him down, he's not getting back up.
Marquise has proven that, like Jake said, just kind of throw him in the slot and.
Which is good for the Ravens because they can keep him for as long as he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to get that even wide receiver 2 money.
And I think that Bateman will also develop into being a good wide receiver 2 or 3, and then they could eventually move on from Marquise if things are, if they do pick up that 1 this year. But
yeah, I mean that's
my big issue with Lamar, and this will be very contradicting to what you guys just broke down and what you all said. The thing about Lamar that is limiting him from getting a big contract extension is his decision-making and his lack of ability to sit in the pocket and pass. I know I said earlier that the NFL is growing and it's becoming a league where you want guys that are going to be mobile. But you also need guys that can sit in the pocket and pass. Josh Allen can move with his legs. He can also sit in the pocket and throw the ball 90 yards down the field. Not 90, but you get what I'm getting at.
Right.
70.
And Lamar's lack of decision making, yes, he's came back and he's led him to a couple comeback victories. That's not what I'm getting at. Lamar, in the games that he played this year, he was sacked more than twice, all but one of the games. And I'm minusing the game that he threw 4 passes and got hurt. But he was sacked once in his 4 pass attempts in that one game. I get what you guys are saying about Marquise Brown and having Mark Andrews, but that 16 to 13 touchdown interception ratio speaks numbers. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but he did win the MVP 2 years ago, and ever since he's won the MVP, he hasn't really backed that up a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Ravens should let him go, but I don't think that I don't think he should be paid the same as Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes right now.
I mean, if Derek Carr is getting that 33, 34, $40 million
I would feel better paying Derek Carr $40 million a year right now than Lamar Jackson.
I don't know about that.
Lamar Jackson is so if. I get that he can run the ball. You know what you're going to get out of Derek Carr. Lamar, you watch what happens when Lamar's backup comes in, and he does literally the same thing.
I mean, I'm not going to say it on here.
I think now looking at what you said, I get the Ravens,
I can see that, but it's Lamar Jackson.
I get the Ravens wanting to do it and then wanting to see how he performs this year. But the issue with that is if he does perform well and then says, oh, no, F you because you didn't want to re-sign me last year, you didn't have faith in me, well, now you're screwed. So I know it's kind of like a 50-50 situation. It's I don't know if we want to make a decision yet. Should we, should we not? But I guess it'll just kind of have to we'll see how this pans out next season. Because if he does perform well and then all of a sudden says, well, you don't know, maybe there's another team down the road that's got the same talent we do, and you never really picked up the wide receiver one I wanted, and blah, 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 maybe I go somewhere else. We'll see. But I think that's all we have for the Ravens.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
So make sure to stay tuned for the rest of our AFC North videos, and peace out.